Hello everyone, welcome to Learn or Recall. Here we are with another informative video. If you didn't tap the subscribe button till now, please tap it and support us with your likes and comments. Hello everyone, in this video we are going to learn or recall about Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was released from prison on February 11, 1990. After serving 27 years of imprisonment, he was initially sentenced in 1962 for his involvement in planning acts of sabotage against the apartheid government. His release marked a pivotal moment in South Africa's history and the eventual dismantling of apartheid. Mandela's freedom was the result of both domestic pressure and international advocacy for the end of apartheid. His release paved the way of negotiations between the apartheid government and the African National Congress (ANC), leading to the first multinational elections in 1994, in which Mandela became South Africa's first black president. Nelson Mandela's struggle for release after 27 years in prison was marked by significant personal, political, and social challenges. His imprisonment began in 1962, and during his years in captivity, Mandela became a symbol of resistance to apartheid, the oppressive systems of racial segregation in the South Africa. Mandela endured brutal conditions in prison, especially during his time on Robben Island, where he was forced to perform hard labor in a lime quarry, suffered inadequate food, and was often subjected to solitary confinement. These conditions took a physical toll on him, but he remained committed to his cause. The apartheid government tried to break Mandela's spirit by offering him conditional release in exchange for re-announcing violence and abandoning his struggle. He refused to compromise his principles, insisting that freedom could only be achieved through the dismantling of apartheid, not through mere personal concessions. For much of his imprisonment, the apartheid government maintained a stance of refusing to negotiate with Mandela, believing he was a dangerous terrorist. Meanwhile, Mandela and the African National Congress (ANC) called for a non-violent struggle and a political solution to apartheid, but both sides were entrenched in their positions. The global anti-apartheid movement played a critical role in Mandela's release. Sanctions, boycotts, and protests around the world put immense pressure on the South African government. The United Nations and other international bodies increasingly condemned apartheid, making it difficult for the regime to maintain its global standing. By the late 1980s, the apartheid regime began to face internal crises, including economic decline, unrest, and growing international isolation. South African leaders like President F.W. de Klerk realized that the system could not survive in its current form, and negotiations for reform became inevitable. Throughout this imprisonment, Mandela's political vision and leadership remained a beacon for the anti-apartheid movement. While in the prison, he also continued to communicate with key members to ANC, African National Congress, maintaining his influence over the movement. His willingness to negotiate with apartheid government was an important factor in the eventual discussions that led to his release. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became the president of South Africa, aware of the growing pressure for change. He took the bold step of opening up negotiations with ANC. By the end of 1989, de Klerk began to take steps to end apartheid, including lifting the ban on ANC and releasing other political prisoners. Mandela's release was part of the largest political shift. Finally, on February 11, 1990, Mandela walked out of Victor Verster Prison near Cape Town to a hero's welcome after 27 years behind bars. He was accompanied by his wife, Winnie Mandela, and millions around the world celebrated his freedom. However, he immediately sought to ensure that the focus remained on the collective struggle for freedom. Rather than simply his release, Mandela's release was not the end of the struggle, but the beginning of negotiations, and that ultimately dismantled apartheid and paved the way for the democratic South Africa. His commitment to peace and his willingness to negotiate with his former oppressors were key elements of his leadership during this time. Thank you. Subscribe for more. If you find it useful, please share the video.